First, here is the summary of the story. The United States launched decisive strikes against Venezuelan cartels and their drug boats in order to cut off the flow of narcotics into international waters and weaken the financial networks of organized crime. Using advanced naval power, drones, and intelligence coordination, the U.S. aimed to dismantle smuggling routes that had long supported violence and corruption across the region. The mission was dangerous but sent a strong message that Washington is prepared to act far beyond its borders to protect its homeland and allies from the destructive influence of the drug trade. Hello everyone, welcome back to the World Conflict Monitor channel. Please subscribe my channel. Today we take a deep dive into the question of how the United States launched decisive strikes against Venezuelan cartels and their drug boats, an operation that not only shook the underworld of South America but also reverberated across international waters. The story begins with intelligence reports that identified heavily armed cartel groups using speedboats and semi-submersibles to ferry cocaine and other narcotics from Venezuela into the Caribbean, onward to Central America, and eventually into the streets of the United States and Europe. Washington knew this was not just about drugs but about financing criminal empires that fuel corruption, violence, and instability across the region. On the exterior, the operation looked like a classic demonstration of U.S. naval and aerial supremacy. The United States deployed destroyers, Coast Guard cutters, and surveillance aircraft across strategic choke points in the Caribbean Sea. The sight of massive gray warships moving in formation against the backdrop of the tropical waters was a powerful signal to both allies and adversaries. High-speed intercept boats skimmed the surface, waiting for the signal to chase down suspicious vessels. From the outside, it was clear this wasn't just a policing action but a military-grade operation where every vessel, every aircraft, and every armed unit was part of a larger machine working to close in on the cartel routes. Inside the operation, the interior of the command structure was tightly coordinated and surprisingly streamlined. At the Hardware Intelligence Fusion Centers where U.S. Southern Command, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and Allied intelligence services pooled satellite data, signals intercepts, and informant reports. The interior of this system was about rapid communication and decision-making. Within minutes, a suspicious radar blip could be matched with drone footage and an order would be relayed to a nearby ship to intercept. The chain of command was kept deliberately short, ensuring that there was no delay between spotting a cartel boat and sending forces to stop it. The performance of this campaign was judged by speed, precision, and effectiveness. U.S. Navy fast response boats were equipped with powerful engines capable of matching the velocity of cartel speedboats, while maritime patrol aircraft like the P-8 Poseidon provided constant overhead surveillance. Drones equipped with thermal cameras tracked vessels even in moonless nights or heavy storms. Every interception was treated as a test of agility. The cartel boats, often called narco-subs, were built to be stealthy, low radar, and fast, but the performance of American forces demonstrated overwhelming superiority. The ability to not only detect but also to capture or disable these vessels without causing massive loss of life was one of the key achievements of the mission. Safety features were central to these operations because the U.S. did not want reckless engagements that could spark diplomatic crises. Rules of engagement ensured that cartel boats were hailed multiple times before warning shots were fired. Non-lethal disabling techniques, such as precision gunfire at engines or propellers, were often preferred. Helicopters carried snipers trained to disable boats without harming crews. Boarding teams were equipped with body armor, night vision, and less lethal weapons to minimize risks during confrontations. At sea, safety also meant protecting U.S. personnel from ambushes, since some cartel vessels were known to be armed with heavy machine guns or even rocket-propelled grenades. Every intercept was treated with extreme caution and discipline. Unique selling points of this campaign were rooted in a blend of technology, multinational cooperation, and psychological warfare. The U.S. demonstrated that by combining advanced satellite imagery with persistent aerial surveillance and fast-response naval assets, it could choke off cartel routes that had previously seemed untouchable. Another unique element was the coordination with regional partners. Colombia, Panama, and even some Caribbean states shared intelligence and allowed their ports to be staging grounds. Beyond the physical seizures of drugs and boats, the psychological impact on the cartels was enormous. They realized their once secretive maritime highways were no longer safe, and the cost of moving narcotics suddenly increased dramatically. If one were to think in terms of price, the costs and benefits of the operation go beyond dollars. For the United States, the price was billions in naval deployments, surveillance operations, and logistical planning. However, the payoff was measured in tons of drugs seized, networks disrupted, and the signal sent worldwide that the U.S. was prepared to extend its military reach into narcotics enforcement. For the cartels, the price was devastating: millions lost in destroyed vessels, lost shipments, arrested crews, and the forced adaptation to even riskier smuggling strategies. In the bigger picture, the price of instability in Venezuela itself, where these cartels often found refuge in corrupt systems, was brought into sharp relief. In conclusion, the U.S. strike against Venezuelan cartels and their drug boats was not merely a tactical success but also a strategic message. It showed that Washington would not tolerate threats emanating from the Caribbean and would use its superior naval and intelligence assets to crush networks that destabilize societies. While the cartels are adaptive and resilient, the operation marked a new chapter in the war on drugs, where the line between law enforcement and military action blurred significantly. The exterior showcased overwhelming force, the interior revealed a lean intelligence-driven machine, the performance was unmatched, the safety features kept escalation under control, the unique selling points were rooted in cooperation and technology, the price was steep but necessary, and the conclusion was clear: the United States had redrawn the battlefield of the drug war from hidden jungle routes to the open waters of the Caribbean, where the balance of power tilts heavily in its favor. This operation, though part of a long struggle, represents the lengths to which Washington is willing to go. It highlights that for the United States, defending its homeland means extending its reach into contested waters, and for the cartels, the age of impunity on the seas is rapidly coming to an end.